things that we are controlled by that are not beneficial for our wives, for our marriages, and our families, right? We need to make sure that we subdue those things, put those things under control. Number one, that would be very clear for most husbands, right? Pornography, right? That might be a thing that we're struggling with. Crusty when you have to go put your kids to sleep. Crusty when you have to go to bed. And in your crusty self, you want to have sex. I sugar. No, bro. You need to bath, bro. You need to bath, my bro. Ay.
1, 2, 3, 4.
What's good, beautiful people? Welcome to 2.5 Husbands, where we celebrate becoming better husbands.
It's 2.5, even though there are 3 husbands, and that's because at some point, one of us, if not all of us, was not fully the husband that we were supposed to be.
And that's why we actually come here on a weekly basis to discuss some of the issues that we face, some of the issues we are seeing around us, and we hope that the journey that we started with you and for you is going to benefit you,
and yours.
Hey, what's up? Welcome to 2.5 Husbands, where we celebrate becoming better husbands. My name is Black. If you are new to this channel, this is who we are. This is what we do, man. Happy New Year. Happy New Year to everybody. Happy New Year to those who've been part of the community, to those who recently joined. I saw some comments of people who were watching some of our old content over the December holidays. Shout outs to you guys for joining this community, this squad, this family, this crazy corner of the universe that we call 2.5 Husbands. If you still haven't been subscribed, subscribe, man. Hit the notification bell. Guys, we don't say that just for just. It's part of the growth journey, man. It's part of what it is that we're doing. And so with the content that we give, I think it's just dope nyana. If you would just click the notification bell so that you're notified every time we drop an episode. Shout outs to the husbands. Guys had downtime over the holidays. Hope it was great spending time with your family, with your wives, with your kids. And hopefully you're ready, man, for 2024. People call me old for saying the whole thing 2024, and those people are my wife. But 2024, hope you're ready for this. And I'm excited for this episode because I wanted to get into some things that I think will help us as husbands as we think about the year ahead, things that we can be excited about, and things that we can really get our hands muddy and dirty with, so that we can actually do what we call for in this channel or on this channel, and that is to become better husbands, right? And so we're going to do 17 things. I know some people do 5, 10, 17 might feel like an odd number, and it's a bit skewed. But the reason for that is because I looked at our content from the previous seasons, just some of the things that have been going on in my own marriage, looking at what's happening in the culture, on the internet especially, and where people are at. And, we just sat down and compiled these 17 things that I think, one, we can improve on as husbands, on our journey to become better husbands. But for some of us, what it means to become a better husband is that you probably you didn't even have any goals, right, for your husbandry or your husbandhood, or your role as a husband. And improving means that you might even take some of these 17 things and try and implement them in your life as a husband to see those things come to fruition in your marriage, right? So some of us need to improve on these things. Some of us might need even to start implementing these things. And here's the thing, it's 17. I don't think I'm going to do all of them. I might get to some of them this year, but at least I think it's a full package enough for us to pick 1 or 2 things that we'd want to focus on and really improve on, so that we are becoming better husbands, right? So you might do all 17 because you've been graced and you're a super husband out there. Shout outs to you. You might be like me, who's a half husband, and you might do like 5 or 10 of these things. Or you might just be a husband who's new and you're trying to figure yourself out in this new role that you've taken, and you might do 1 or do 2, right? Wherever we are, I think there's going to be some gems for us here, right? So let's start here. What's number 1 that I think we need to do, improve, get on in 2024 as husbands. One, communication, right? If you know anything about this channel and know what I particularly emphasize on most of our episodes, is that we need to communicate. And I think I put it number one because it's really important. And I think you'll see with all the other 16 things that I'll speak on how communication is really key in getting all these other things to come to life, right? But we need to communicate, gents. We need to speak to our wives. We need to tell them where we at, what our thoughts are, what we're feeling, right? And I think the thing with communication is that's where marriage happens, right? Marriage is between two people who will communicate their thoughts, their feelings, their ambitions, their dreams, their goals, right? How else am I going to know what my wife is thinking if I don't speak to her, if she doesn't speak to me, if I don't listen, right? If she doesn't listen to me? How else will I know where we need to improve, where we're going, what else needs to be placed attention on, right? How else would I know that if we don't communicate? So I think for some husbands, communication might be the thing that's taken a back burner. We need to bring it to the forefront, man. 2024, let's really get on that and improve our communication, right? And that's going to look differently for different people, for different husbands. But I think we need to prioritize that and make it a key thing in our marriages. I listened recently to somebody who was speaking. I don't know if this is like a genuine study. You know, on the internet, everybody has a study, but they were saying that like husbands have 5,000 words per day and wives have 15,000 words per day, right? And so if a husband then goes to work, you might use up all your 5,000 words. By the time you get back home, you don't have any more words, and your wife might have used 5,000 of her words at work, and she comes back home and she has 10,000 words, right? I'll be honest, sometimes it feels like my wife has 10,000 words. But it's always cool to just obviously hear everything that she has to say. But here's the thing. The reason why I'm bringing that up is this. You might have 5,000 words and come back home and feel like I don't have anything else to say. I think improving your communication this year means you're going to have to love your wife enough to go find 5,000 other words, right, to speak to her when you do get home. Because again, as much as work is important, as our outside life is important, obviously our marriage, our wives, our first priority, that's the most important institution in our life. Your wife is the most important person, right? For me, after God, obviously. And so I think, man, we're going to have to find the other 5,000 words to speak to our wives. And I think another thing is, I said this on a podcast I have with my wife, right? The Newborns, go check that out if you don't know what it is, right? But what we spoke about in light of communication on an episode there was how wives can also find ways to basically prompt us, right, as husbands to speak about our day. So instead of my wife asking me how your day was, because as a husband, sometimes when I'm asked that question, I'm just like, I don't even know where to begin. But quote unquote, if she would speak husband language or man language, right, if I should put it that way, is for her to ask me, what have I achieved that day? And trust me, once you ask a dude, what has he achieved? That just does something to us, man, as men. And then we bring out, our thoughts, our feelings, our ideas, really how our day was. And so I think having that conversation, again, communicating with your wife to say, hey, maybe communicate in this way, so that it presses buttons, massages buttons in me that will evoke, encourage, awaken certain things that will enable me to get those 5,000 words. But I think we should be fighting to get those 5,000 words because we love our wives, right? So let me not dwell too much on that, but communication, that's something that I think we need to work hard on. Second thing, solidifying your vision, right? A couple of episodes, we've been speaking about a husband having a vision for his household. If you're going to be the head of that household, if you're going to lead the people that God has entrusted in your hands, that's your wife, that's your kids if you have kids. Well, we need to have a vision for that, right? Nobody starts a company without a vision. No president should be leading a country with no vision. Right? No pastor should lead a church without a vision. And so we need to have a vision for our lives, for ourselves, for our household, for our families, and then basically bring the people that God has entrusted us with and ask what they have. So I need to ask what my wife's vision is for her life and then say, hey, this is a vision I have. Let's see how we marry those two things so that I can be equipped and enabled to lead her so that she becomes the best person that God has intended her to be, right? But we need to solidify our vision, right? We did that with my wife recently, which was such a dope exercise for us. Did I have a vision for my family? I did. Did I communicate it accurately over the past 10 years? No, I didn't. There were little moments that vision showed itself. Little moments where I tried communicating to my wife that this is the vision I have for our family. But over the holidays, we sat down and said, hey man, listen, we reaching 10 years. We need to just like take stock of how the past 10 years have been. What are the things that we are excited about for our marriage? Where do we think our marriage is going, right? And I had to say, as the leader of the house, the head of the house, man, Joe, what are some things that we should put in place so that we could actually actualize the vision that we have for our family? This is really like a tip for you for free, right? But one thing we did was just even coming up with a family creed. And if you're wondering what that is, it's basically coming up with a family vision to say, these are the kind of people we are. And so then everything else in our life needs to embody those principles, those values that we've come up with in our creed, right? And obviously then we have to recite the creed to ourselves, from time to time. So we remind ourselves of what our principles are, what our values are, and what is the thing that we want to bring into the world as a family, right? And so we need to solidify our vision as husbands for the marriages, the families that we are going to put out in the world, right? So solidify your vision, man. And with that said, man, I think the third thing then, again, something we've constantly said on this podcast, you need to be on the same page when it comes to your worldviews. You need to be on the same page when it comes to what it is you believe about the world, yourselves, God, work, children, etc. Right? For us, it's been a key thing that brings us together, that keeps us, especially when things get shaky, right? So we obviously looked to our faith and we say, hey, listen, I might not like you right now because things are tough, and that's part of what communication is as a husband, that I'm honest with my wife, especially in times when I'm like, yo, man, I love you to death, but maybe we're fighting. I just don't like you right now, right? But the thing that holds us is that we're on the same page when it comes to our faith. We're on the same page when it comes to our worldview. And so I know as well that even if things get rocky, again, we're individuals, we're two sinners who are coming together. It's literally two universes colliding, trying to create one world, trying to create one universe. So there's going to be a lot of rubbing up against each other, a lot of clashes, etc. But I know as a husband that if we believe the same things, there's a standard that's beyond my wife, a standard that's beyond me, that's keeping both of us accountable, right? And so I think if you haven't had the faith conversations, have the faith conversations, have the worldview conversations in 2024 as you sit with your spouse, with your wife in this case, right? And really try and get on the same page, iron out certain things, put things in place so that you guys could actually get to a point where you are thriving in your faith, if that's what's keeping you together, and whatever other worldview that you hold. So I think, it's very key that have a couple of date nights, sit down and say, we really need to iron out one or two things so that we can actually thrive as a couple, we can thrive as a family, and be the people that we see ourselves becoming in this world, right? And with that in mind, number 4, I think as husbands, we need to kind of take a step, right? Really assume the position and take charge to defend our families, but particularly in this instant, to defend our wives from any other worldviews that contradict what our worldviews are, any other philosophies out there. And trust me, those are not easy conversations. Again, we are two people who are coming together. Yes, we might have the same worldview, but there's other things that come because of our childhood, how we were raised, how life has forced us into certain corners, and now there's certain things that we are believing about the world, about ourselves, about God, etc. And I think we need to do the hard job as husbands to really sit down with our wives and hear what it is that they're listening to. My wife tends to share her podcasts with me. She tends to share what series she's watching. She tends to share, what music that she's listening to. And part of my job as a husband is to actually listen out to the worldviews and those things and engage my wife. Again, not in a way that's confrontational, not in a way that's like, I think this sucks, you shouldn't do that, etc., etc. But again, we married for life, and we're going to be married until death happens on one of us, or God comes back and calls us, whatever the case is, but we here forever, right? Together, at least while we're still this side of heaven. And so we need to have a conversation continuously about what it is that we are engaging with and taking in. And part of my gig as a husband is to say, hey man, I don't think that's helpful. I think that's helpful, etc., etc. But that's, again, to what I said with number one, it's going to require communication. It's going to require conversations. It's going to require for us to sit down and say, hey, this is where I'm at. This is what I'm thinking. How do you see this thing? And I could tell you this for free, man. The past 10 years, that has been a touch point for us, when we've had other things come in that have infiltrated from outside, and it's probably hard for me to bring it up. And sometimes even vice versa with my wife, that she's probably seeing that, hey, I think you're engaging on content that's not helpful. And she'd find ways to kind of navigate that to say, hey, I don't think that thing is helpful. But I think if we gonna become better husbands, we need to step up and really say, hey, how are we defending our wives? How are we defending our families from contradicting worldviews and philosophies from what it is that we're holding on to as our primary worldview, our faith in our families, right? And then with that said, I think we need to communicate what we our expectations of ourselves, rather, right? We need to communicate our expectations of ourselves. I think as husbands, we tend to communicate what it is we expect from our wives, right? We're very, very eloquent when it comes to that. I expect 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for my wife. But very rarely do we do the hard work of sitting down and saying, what is it that I expect from myself as a husband? And then doing the harder work of actually sitting down with your wife and saying, here's what I'm expecting of myself as a husband. Are these things that you're expecting of me as a husband? Because another thing, you could say, I'm expecting this of myself as a husband. And then your wife is like, well, that's not what I'm expecting of you as a husband. Or rather, I can even see some of the things you're expecting of yourself that you've already done, you've already accomplished, or you're walking in them. So I think she would be a great springboard for her to clarify your expectations of yourself. But it is a hard thing to be vulnerable and open and honest with your wife to say, hey, this is what I'm expecting of myself. Are these things that you think are valid? Am I seeing right? Do I have the right expectations of myself, right? And that would mean that you have a standard for who you are as a husband, right? And you're not just willy-nilly, casually, nonchalantly just living your life as a husband and not taking that role seriously, right? That means you're actually going to take stock and sit down and say, hey man, how am I going to improve and become a better husband? What are the things that I need to do away with? And therefore coming up with the expectations of yourself as a husband so that you can go to your wife and say, hey, here are 2, 3 things that I'm expecting of myself in 2024. Can you help me with these things? Do you see that there's a necessity for me to really work on these areas of my life? Or your wife might say, nah, I think you're walking in those things, or you've conquered them, or yes, you are right. I was afraid of actually asking you that can you improve on 1 or 2 things, right? So I think have expectations of who you are. Number 6, with that said, we need to learn in 2024 to control our addictions. And I say that very deliberately. Addictions sounds like a very heavy word, like you're addicted to something, right? And you're controlled by that. But in a nutshell, that's actually what I am saying. Things that we are controlled by that are not beneficial for our wives, for our marriages, and our families, right? We need to make sure that we subdue those things, put those things under control. Number 1, that would be very clear for most husbands, right? Pornography, right? That might be a thing that we're struggling with. So we need to put that thing under control, get rid of it, in fact, right? Because it's obviously going to affect and impact the intimacy and the sexual relations with your wife in your marriage. And so some of us might have been struggling with that for a very long time. And so as we come into 2024, man, maybe that's something as you think about your expectations for yourself, as you think about the worldview that you imbibe, as you think about the vision for your family, I think put those things to death, right? porn, put that thing to death, man. That thing is going to obviously destroy your soul, your mind, your marriage. It's going to destroy your pockets, but put that thing to death. You might be struggling with alcohol, right? And over December, you had a couple of bottles, and that thing has obviously affected your marriage before. So put that thing under control. And my wife was showing me a video of a psychologist who was speaking about alcohol and how to obviously get rid of that in your life. And we've heard this advice before, but don't go cold turkey immediately. If you've been drinking a 6-pack every day, that you would cut down, right? And really get to a point. So maybe just cut 4, right? And do 2, and then slowly, gradually get rid of that thing, so that it's not again affecting your marriage, your mental health, your pockets, and the well-being of your family. So it might be that. Control your addictions with sports, right? We husbands, we like our soccer, we like our basketball, our rugby, etc. And that thing might have taken your time away from your family, your wife, your marriage. So please control that. There's a podcast I was watching. They were speaking about willpower, and how our willpower weakens if we don't do hard things, right? If we stop doing hard things, our willpower weakens. And once our willpower weakens, that's how we become addicted to stuff. Because then you don't have the willpower to fight back, but you just casually get drawn in and you're taken by the current of whatever that thing, and you end up being addicted. So I think strengthen your willpower by doing hard things. Hard thing for you might be to, number 1, go communicate that you have addictions to your wife and say, hey, listen, this stuff is hard. Here's what I'm struggling with. And with that in mind, I need to pause and say this. There's certain things that we don't need to burden our wives with, or find ways, after consulting brothers, older men, and mentors about some of these dark things that you might be battling with if you have like real dark addictions, right? And you might be struggling with that stuff. And it's probably going to be unhelpful for you to go directly to your wife first and foremost and just burden her with the raw, real, hardcore truth of how dark this thing is. Because again, your wife might also think you ended up in whatever addiction that you're in because it might be something that she's done. I'm not saying that she did anything, but she might assume, hey, listen, I might have done something to cause this thing. And so don't do that, because there might be her insecurities, obviously, that spring up. But speak to older men, speak to brothers, speak to mentors about this thing and see how they can help you to navigate how you put that addiction to death or under control, and then use language that's going to be easier for you to communicate that with your wife, right? But again, we need to be communicating if we are going to be better husbands this year in 2024, right? So I think put your addictions to death or put them under control, so that your marriage can thrive, so that you can thrive as a husband. Number 7, cultivate emotional connectivity with your wife, man. And I put it after, controlling your addictions, because again, addictions tend to take the better part of who we are. That's our soul, that's truly who we are at our core. And so then the thing that suffers is our emotional connectivity, our emotional intelligence, and our wives tend to want to connect at that level with us. It's not saying that our wives are not cognitive at all. Not at all. I think my wife is a super genius, man. And when she starts thinking, there's like mad dope things that come from her mind. But I know that like she wants to connect here, right? And so addictions take that away. Once I have my soul, my being controlled under the power of something else, then I don't have control over who I am. And then what happens? I become depressed. What happens? I become very low. And then my emotional connectivity really suffers, right? So I think even if you don't have addictions in that sense that they're taking your emotional connectivity away, that's something we need to improve on as husbands, as guys, right? We need to just grow in finding ways that we can connect with our wives emotionally. And part of that is helping our wives understand how we are emotionally wired, right? So there's this whole narrative and rhetoric about how wives are super emotional and husbands are not. And I'm like, that thing is unhelpful, right? Maybe at broad categories that might be true, but I think lived experience day to day on a very nuanced level, I am emotional. I'm a human. I have emotions, and my emotions can be communicated in a different way that my wife communicates her emotions. I express, I live, I show my emotions in a different way than a woman, because I'm not a woman. And so I think it's a lie that we can believe as husbands. Therefore, it causes us to not even try and work hard at growing and cultivating our emotional connectivity. So I think we need to work at that. Whatever way we communicate our emotions and express that, let's show our wives that. Let's tell them what that is. And that's going to require communication. That's going to require us sitting down with our wives and saying, hey, man, this is where I'm at. This is how I feel. This is how I express stuff. And maybe when you say this, this happens. When you do that, this happens. So that also will empower them in helping us as we cultivate our emotion. Because I'm not trying to cultivate my emotional connectivity with other women. I'm trying to do that with my wife. And that's what marriage is. I'm going to spend the rest of my life growing emotionally and helping my wife to understand how I communicate my emotions and how they're developing. And she's going to do that as well for me. And that's what marriage is, right? So let's do that, man. Number 7. Number 8, seek help, man, if you're hurting your wife, right? Seek help if you're hurting your wife. If that's a physical thing, I would even say, man, don't even listen to anything else I've said so far. I would say switch this thing off, go seek help, man. Confess your sins to whoever is older, you trust, somebody who you are completely vulnerable with. A man, right? If you're a husband, and just seek help, man. If this thing has become that brutal and it's that messy and it's violent, but even with that, there's still other ways we can hurt our wives. We can hurt our wives financially, right? Keeping secrets with our money, not spending our money right, not being open. We can spiritually abuse our wives and hurt them. If you checked out Ellen P's episode, it was pretty dope, where he said at some point when he was fighting with his wife, he would pull out the Bible and just be like, this is what the thing says. And as somebody who's a Christian, yes, we need to follow what the Bible says, but we can't weaponize it in a way to control our wives. And that's not what he was saying. He was just saying there was a point where he hadn't grown enough to know how to handle the word of God in relation to how he leads his wife, right? But that might be you, that you are, and you know this, just using the Bible to abuse your wife. Seek help, man. Stop this. Don't even listen to anything else that I'm going to say. Switch this video off after this and go seek help, right? You might be verbally hurting your wife. How you speak to her, sometimes we say, yeah, but we guys. Yes. Then if you think I'm a guy, then like you're not married to a guy, right? Your wife is a woman, and she wants to be spoken in a way that she can feel loved, can feel cared for. And so 2024, we need to just, man up, shape up, change your language, find ways that are loving. Calm down, pause. Again, what expectations do you have for yourself, right? And ask your wife. And she might say, hey, you expecting to be this great CEO of whatever business that you're running, or this great YouTube content creator, but I actually expect you to just be a husband who speaks to me well, right? And so then I don't need to go spend the rest of 2024 trying to kill it on the internet while I'm killing my wife, right? So I'm like, man, let's actually stop it. If we are hurting our wives in whatever way, stop that and seek for help immediately, right? And that's something that we should be, doing 2024. And next to that, point number 8, or rather point 9, marriage counseling. Make that a priority this year, right? We don't need to just go to marriage counseling only when our marriages are falling apart. But marriage counseling is as good as taking your car for service. You don't just take your car to the garage when it's broken. Yes, when it's broken, immediately take it to the garage. You can't drive the thing. You're going to damage it even more. But we take it after 15 kilometers, 10 kilometers, 10,000 rather, not 15,000, 10,000. Whatever your car requires, we take it to for service, to the mechanic, to the garage, so that it can remain healthy and it can take us longer and further, right? And that's the same thing that's going to happen with our marriages. That's something I've been saying to my wife, that we just need to like put marriage counseling as part of our yearly calendar, that we go sit with somebody and just be like, hey man, let's check where we at. Somebody else who's not in our marriage, obviously, who has experience, wisdom, education, knowledge, that they would speak into areas. And here's the thing, you might get there and find that you guys are killing it. And then you just find ways of how to improve and just become better at what it is that you're doing already in your marriage with your wife, right? Or you might think things are fine, but when you get underneath that stuff, you like, stuff is rotten here. When you open your bonnet, you realize, dog, it's rotten, right? And just on the surface, the car looks nice. You always take it to the car wash. It's clean. But inside, man, it's rotten. Your engine has failed, bro. It's rotting away. Rats have been chowing at your wires. It's nuts, right? And so you need to then say, hey, let's open this thing up and clean it up and fix it and make sure that it's working well, functioning well, so that it could take us the long way, because we want to be here till death, man. We don't want to quit. We don't want to slack. We don't want to come with half-hearted approaches to this thing. We really want to be committed fully, and that's going to require, somebody to kind of help you fix things that are there, right? So I think, I want to put it in, man. I said earlier on, I've been telling my wife that we need to do that, but I haven't been telling her like, let's do it, and she's not doing it. I've been telling her, but not following up myself. Right, so I need to put that into my calendar, into my plans for the year, and say this is what I'm gonna do, and just book a couple of sessions throughout the year that we go to, sit down, check, and really, get healthy, get more healthy if we're healthy, get healthy if we're not healthy, right? So I don't think that it's gonna be a loss. It's not a loss if you go there. It's a loss if you don't at all, right? So prioritize that, get that onto your diary, man. And speaking about the health of our marriage and, going to check, plan a getaway. Just one, comrade, right? Plan one getaway this year. It doesn't have to be a trip to go have a Euro tour, but just plan one getaway where your wife just has to show up. Literally, she just has to show up. Plan everything from, where you're going to stay, what itinerary, the things you're going to do when you get there, plan the food that you're going to have, pack her bags, right? That she just wakes up, gets into the car, gets driven. When you get there, you carry her bags into whatever place you're going into. She just gets treated like the queen you want her to be. All right, just plan one, bro. One getaway. Right. Again, I said at the beginning, we might not get to all of these things, but at least find one of these things and do them this year. And a getaway might be low-hanging fruit. It might not be the hardest thing for you to do. Find her friends. If she has a sister, find her sister, find her friends, ask them what's, maybe her ideal getaway. That's not going to hurt your pockets if you don't have the guap. If you have the guap, man, go wild, bro. If you don't, and you guys are, building and you're saving, but find a place that she's going to love, that's going to be dope, cost effective, and not cost effective like she's going to get there and hate it. Like, yes, dog, you cheap, right? Like, cost effective, she's still going to have a nice time. She's still going to enjoy herself. It's going to be an amazing time. So I think do that, man. Plan that getaway. Get intel, man, create your own FBI friends that will investigate, give you notes on what it is that you should be doing, where you should take her to, etc. I need to do that this year. It's our 10-year anniversary, so we might plan a getaway together because it's our marriage, and then I might have to plan another getaway and surprise her. And it's hard to say that while your wife is in the room right now, right? So the surprise is gonna be, she doesn't know when that thing is gonna be, right? All right, so number 11, I think take stock of your role as a husband. Okay, so in number 5 I had said communicate your expectations, but here in number 11, ask your wife, what about your role as a husband have you done well? What about your role as a husband have you failed in? And what areas do you need to improve? That's going to be a hard thing, right? Because again, we coming into marriage with ideas of how this thing is going to be, and marriage then just becomes marriage, right? Marriages, right? and then all the ideas and thoughts you had and the dreams and the fantasies got out the window, and then you have to cope, survive, keep this thing alive, etc. Right? But then after that initial shock, you have to kind of get into your rhythm and try and live out your role as a husband and step into it, take that position, assume that role, right? And so there's going to be things about that role that you'll kill. There's going to be things about that role that kill you. So I think have that honest conversation with your wife if you haven't this year. I actually picked this tip up from an episode we had with Ezekiel Azonu, and he said that every year him and his wife do this exercise, right? I think it was every year or they have months but at some point in their marriage, they constantly ask each other. The wife will say, what about my role as a wife? Have I killed? What about my role as a wife has killed me, right? And then he has to obviously tell her, and vice versa. And that only speaks to the improvement of your role as a husband, and ultimately the improvements in the health of your marriage. If I become a better husband, guess what becomes better? My marriage, my wife, my child, my family, right? And so I need to be asking what areas I need to improve on, what areas I need to dial down on, and really go hard on those areas that I'm killing. Not for myself, again, but again for the health of my marriage, for my wife, my family, so that those people, those institutions as well, family being one, can really thrive and become, amazing to impact the world around us, society, all those great things, man. So I think have that exercise. Could be that one thing you do this year. Just going to sit down with my wife and ask her, where have I killed it? Where have I fallen short, right? And see where it is I can improve or actually just dial down and become better. Number 12, find role models that your wife does not hate, right? Because you can think you have role models that you look up to, and your wife is sitting there thinking to herself, Dassie, bro, like those guys suck. And I wish my husband would not listen to that guy or those guys, and I wish my husband could find a better role model. And here's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that you must find a role model that your wife is just crazy about, because she might have like a very subjective look on that, and then it ends up being, I think we said this in episode 1 of season 1, where you then have to live up to expectations that your wife has that she got from some other man, right? And I'm not saying that. That's not what I'm saying. You know who your wife is. She knows who you are. You guys know what kind of vision you have for your family. And so together you say, hey, man, what are the kind of role models I need to look up to as a husband? There might be people you already look up to that you don't know in person, right? But you follow them online, or it's somebody that you follow at a distance and you see what they do. Obviously, you don't know all their life. And so you're seeing, and as much as they can expose to you. So you're seeing the good, the bad, and the ugly of however much they can expose. And you're like, hey, I want to emulate that as a husband. I want to follow that as a husband. I want to, do that as a husband. So whatever those role models are, I think speak to your wife about them, right? I know there's people who blindly just follow a man who's not even a husband just because he's saying things that might resonate with you as a man. And here's what I'm saying with that. Not all those things might be right, might be good, might be healthy, might be beneficial for you or even your wife or your marriage, right? But because this person has a prominent voice on the internet and they're saying things that are radical more than any other man is saying about manhood, about marriage, about masculinity, etc., and you as a husband think, wow, that's a voice I need to follow, and your wife can sit there and think, hey, there's some things that this guy is saying that are not sitting well with me as a woman, as a wife, right? And again, if we take it back to your worldview, your faith, stuff is not sitting with me, it's not sitting well with me in light of my faith. Right? And so if you hear your wife saying those things, maybe that's probably not the role model that you should be following or somebody that you should look up to. Find somebody that you could say to your wife, okay, cool. Here are things that I expect of myself as a husband. Here's the vision I have of myself. This is where I want to go. Here's a guy I found, right? Could be a guy in your church, could be a guy at your work, could be a guy that you play soccer with. It could be a guy who lives in your state, your complex, or down the road, wherever it is that you stay. I found this dude and I think he's cool and I want to follow him. I want to, let him pour into my life, give me wisdom. All right. Do you think I should look at this dude as a role model? And it could even be your friends, right? Doesn't have to be somebody who's older only, but it could be your friends, right? Some of us have friends who are the same age as us, same years in marriage as us. But yeah, see, this dude has just got a wisdom, man, that I don't have. He has a way of seeing life in a way that's refreshing, that's good, in a way that's attractive for me, that I want to actually follow him and hear what he has to say about a particular area of marriage, of relationships, of faith, of money, etc., of family. And I want to hear what this dude has to say. And your wife might think, yeah, see, that's a proper dude to follow. It's a proper dude to listen to, right? But I think find role models that your wife doesn't hate, man. Find role models that your wife would be pleased with. And know that, hey, if you're listening to this dude online and your wife comes into the room or in the lounge, wherever it is that you're listening to this person, or in the car, she's not cringing the whole time and thinking, how am I going to bring this up? I don't want to fight, etc., 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 right? So I think number 12, man, find role models that your wife doesn't hate. Number 13, right? You might be killing it in the I am doing stuff department, right? As husbands, we want to get our hands muddy and dirty. And so you might be killing it in the I am doing stuff department, right? So you are doing the do's. You are cleaning the garden. You are washing the car on time. You are taking the kids to school. You are, putting the kids to bed. You are making sure that the budget is looked after. You are doing all the stuff that you should be doing as a husband. You should be doing as a leader. And you guys have agreed that these are some of your roles and some of the items in your role that you should be looking after. And you're killing it. But you might not be killing it on the I'm resting, I am listening, I am feeling department, right? Where your wife feels like, Cassie, like you're always doing stuff. And I appreciate it. And trust me, your wife will appreciate you doing stuff, right? She'll appreciate you looking after the flat tire, dog, when there is to take the car to get petrol, right? I need to pour petrol in our car, and my wife makes that clear. Like, she's not going to the garage. It's been my role. And when the car has petrol, she's happy. But she's not going to be happy with the car always having petrol, and yet I don't rest with her. And by rest, I mean I come back from pouring the petrol and doing the do's, and I'm resting and sitting and listening and feeling, hearing where she's at, communicating where I'm at, right? So this year might be the time where you have to balance the scales, man. I'm not saying stop doing the do's, but maybe just increase with the feeling, resting, and listening departments, right? And getting those at the same level, at par with your doing department. We have to be doing stuff. Like, we can't be lazy husbands. We can't be lazy men. We have to be doing stuff. But we also have to be resting. Rest well, right? Because you might be doing hard, and next thing you just go to bed and sleep and you think you are resting. But your wife wants you to rest with her. She wants you to be with her. In the resting, you are listening. Resting might also mean you taking her out of the environment that you're in, out of your normal routine, and you taking her to a place where she can be seen, cared for, and she can know that you hearing her, you listening to her, right? And you're noticing her. So I think we need to make sure that we balance those scales. Number 14, we're getting close. We're getting close to the end, right? Be humble to ask your wife to help you. Right? Might seem weird, but in us doing, we forget that our wives are supposed to be our helpers. And here's the thing. If somebody is going to help you, that means there's things you are lacking in that she has. Hence, she is equipped to help you. So if I'm not humble enough to ask my wife for help, I'm denying her role in our marriage, but I'm also denying that there's things that God has deposited in her life, in her mind, the wisdom that she might have, the knowledge she might have, the talents, the skills, the capabilities, the capacities that she has. I'm denying all of that because I think I can do everything. I think I'm Superman. I think I can handle all of this stuff. I think, 2024, I'm gonna be, a superhero, man. Yeah, I've been lacking on doing 1, 2, 3 in 2023, but now 2024, I'm gonna kill the game, blah blah blah. And your wife is sitting there like, yo, man. Sometimes helping you is probably not getting in the mud with you to get my hands dirty, but sometimes helping you is saying, as you go to the mud, I think here's a better way of getting into the mud without getting yourself overly dirty. Right? She just gives you wisdom because she has a different perspective. That's why God gives her to you, because you don't have the eyes to see everything all at once, but she has extra eyes. She has a brain. She has a heart. She has experience. She has the know-how to see certain things that you don't see. And vice versa, when she goes and decides to go do stuff in her life, yo, man, she's going to ask you for advice. As somebody who's supposed to lead the charge, do you think it's right for me to go there? Yeah, I think it's right in light of our vision, our principles, our values, who we want to become in the world as a couple, as a family. Yes, I think you can. And I think here's probably ways that you can do this thing effectively. Dog, I know there's times where my wife is just like, yeah, I think that thing is just not going to work, bro. Or here's a better way of doing the thing, right? And here's the thing, part of what makes us husbands is because we want to be doers and we always have solutions. That's one thing I learned very early on in my marriage. I don't need to come up with solutions all the time, but that's who we are, right? We solution driven. We want to give solutions the whole time. And so part of that is our ego gets inflated when somebody else comes up with a suggestion. We want to be the ones who come up with everything because we're the solution-driven people. We're the solution-driven guys, right? I am the guy who has solutions here, etc., etc. And so when your wife comes up and says, I think here's a better way of doing this thing, maybe we don't want to take that because it's going to bruise your ego, etc., or whatever the thing is. But I'm like, man, listen, you married this woman because you saw that your life would be better because she is in your life. You could have married anybody else, but you saw her capabilities, her talents, her skills, how she loves, her ambitions, her dreams, her visions. And you were like, yo, man, I think like this thing that we can build can become so dope if I have her in my life, right? I know that of many things that I'm doing in my life, those things become as dope as they can be because, of my wife. And so it would be stupid of me not to humble myself to ask her to help me. 2024, dude, just ask for help. Just sit down and say, yo, man, can I get help here, right? I think the last one's a light, man. Number 15, we're getting there. Number 15, clean up. Gay as a dog. Bath, bro. Yo, perfect. Bath, bro. All right. I have a homie who baths. That dog baths probably 3 times a day. Right. I'm like, yo, man, I should probably do that. Bath 3 times a day. I bath, but I don't bath 3 times a day. Right. I just do bath 3 times a day. That's dope, bro. Right. You might need that. Like you need to bath, bro. In 2024, splash it. You need to bath, right? You might need to bath, bro. Your wife is tired of you coming back from work, smelling raggedy, and worse, you've been working from home. So you're just sitting there with your crusty self, dog. Crusty wake up, crusty while you're eating lunch, crusty on Zoom, crusty when you knock off, crusty when you're sitting by the table and asking for dinner, crusty when you have to go put your kids to sleep, crusty when you have to go to bed. And in your crusty self, you want to have sex. I sugar. No, bro. You need to bath, bro. You need to bath, my bro. 2000. Let's start there. The bar is here. The bar is very low. Bath, bro. Bath. Right? For some of us who are bathing, we probably just need to start grooming, right? Just groom, bro. And here's the thing. Talk to your wife about it. Let me tell you a quick funny story. I like having facial hair. My wife loves my facial hair, right? I'm an artist. I like dressing up. I like looking good. So sometimes I just get bored with my beard, with my hairstyle, couple of years ago, I dyed my hair like several times. Some points it was platinum, was white, it was green. I forgot what other colors I had. Just 'cause I was bored, right? And my wife would say, okay, I like that. I don't like this. Da, da, da. Tell you one thing my wife hates, bro. My wife does not want me to shave my beard, right? There's a couple of times I was bored. I'm like, I'm just going to leave my mustache, cut the thing. And she's like, oh, right? And she can't wait for my beard to grow. But she's communicated that, like, I don't want you to shave your beard. A friend of mine who's been on the channel, right, has a beard, nice beard, groomed. His wife hates that beard, right? His wife wants him to be clean. So I'm like, my dog, maybe just shave, right? Just shave the thing. Give your wife because the wife is turned on when his beard is off. So I'm like, Mfana, it's going to help you in many ways than just one. Yes, you might look like a baby bird, but what other woman are you trying to attract? You have one, right? You have your wife. So you're not trying to attract other simpatis out there. Do what this one wants, and it's going to increase other things, right? Your wife is going to be happy. As you walk into the house, she might have had a rough day, but she sees your beard if she loves beards, and you've taken care of your beard. It's not scruffy, looking like this, whatever. It's nice. Right? And I'm obviously it might be admin for you to go get beard oil and stuff or whatever, but it's just nice. It's clean, it's shaven, it's taken care of, and she sees you walk in the house and she's like, yo, stressful day, but here's my dude. I love him, love how he looks. I feel happy again, right? Or comes in, hey, clean shaved dude, love that, etc. Some of us just need to probably keep our hairstyles, on point, bro. I'm not saying go cut your hair every week. Some of us do that. That's fine. I haven't shaved. Part of why I'm wearing this hat now, because I'm like, hey, it's looking a bit crusty underneath there, right? But I'm like, we need to groom. Some of us need to change our wardrobes, bro. Like, you're walking around, like, those flops, which is string. Umdala, bro. Umdala. Ukoga ma jean. Not much string flops. My chance. We need to probably groom. Just, and I'm not saying go get a stylist now, but just ask your wife first, what would you like me to look like? She tells you, okay, I'm going to try and put this on. Maybe she can't help you put it on. Find a dude who knows how to put things together. Just help him to, But 2024, it's clean up, bro. Clean up, right? Let's do that. Number 16, let's be more joyous and be more happy, right? We've said this a couple of times, and I'm actually going to shoot a full episode speaking about this, but our happiness and our joy as husbands really changes the temperature and the joy and the happiness and the atmosphere of our households, of our families. It influences our wives, it influences our children, right? If we are grumpy, especially as men, and we've seen this many times, right? With fathers who get grumpy when Kaizer Chiefs loses or Pirates loses, and they bring that into the household, and everyone now suddenly is walking around eggshells. The temperature is dropped, the mood is low, people are scared, and people are just not happy. There's no joy in that home. And that translates into how people then function outside of the home. If my wife is not happy at home, where it's supposed to be her base, it's supposed to be her place of safety, how's she going to function at work? How's she going to function at church? How's she going to function with her friends? Because then when she meets her friends, all she's doing is complaining about how grumpy I am. That does not become a wonderful experience for her, hanging out with her friends, but then she's just not having happiness in her life. She's afraid to come back home because then here's Mr. Grumpy, right? So I'm like, let's remember, bro, our joy. In fact, somebody said this in a talk, that the thing that South Africa needs is the joy of men, the joy of husbands. If men are happy and men are joyous, that's going to change a lot of things in our marriages, in our families, and in our country, right? It's going to change a lot of things. It can affect a lot of other problems and solve a lot of other problems that we have in our country. Just think about it. Just think about it. The biggest problem when it comes to our gender relations is obviously gender-based violence. If men were happy. And here's the happiness I'm talking about. It's not a superficial happiness. It's not we got drunk and suddenly we're happy. It's not we high and we're happy. But there's a deep sense in being sure of who you are, right? Again, going back to that worldview stuff. If I am secure in my role, in my faith particularly, right? I'm a Christian. If I'm a Christian and I'm solid in that, that translates into me being happy and solid and grounded in my role as a husband. Then that translates into my being solid at work, being solid with my friends, being solid in how I consume content, and obviously, then I will be solid with my wife. I'll be solid with my child, right? And I'm not saying that will happen perfectly, right? But it's, again, and I'm glad I remembered this, it's not happening perfectly, but it's within the storms around us, it's within all the craziness around us that we find a deep joy, we find a deep happiness that's really going to carry us, and that our wives will see that. I come back from work, yes, I might be a bit, down because maybe work was tough. But if my wife sees my joy in how crappy my day was, and I can still maintain my joy and still be excited and happy to see her, yo, man, that's going to motivate her. That's going to inspire her, right? In fact, my wife said this of me recently, where she said, the last year was a season where I really pushed hard in my work. And I've said this many times on our podcast with my wife. I've said it here as well, that between April and August, that's just a dip for me, right? And we've spoken between me and my wife and close people in my life about why that would be. And the more we chat about the reasons for why I hit a dip around that time of the year, the more clearer it becomes. And it becomes very evident that it is that thing that happened, affected me, like 15, 17 years ago, whatever the time was, right? And even in that dip last year, I persevered, I pushed through. My wife said she saw that, and that inspired her. That inspired her to push through. That inspired her to persevere. That inspired her to, just not settle. You guys have seen season 1. I brought my wife on. We had an episode titled Married to Depression. Go see that, right? And we spoke about my wife's time with severe experiences with depression, right? It hasn't gone away, but there was a time where it was just hard, man. And to hear her say that she saw how I persevered last year, and again, I wasn't persevering with a smile, right? Again, joy and happiness that I'm speaking of is not that I'm just gonna be smiling the whole time, but there's a sense in which I'm anchored and I'm pushing through, and there's a sense in which I'm not just letting what's happening around me to pull me down. And she said she saw that and she pushed through. And now imagine knowing all the mental struggles my wife has, and that alone, my joy, my happiness, this deep sense of surety inspired her to push through, right? So I'm like, yo, man, you could do that. You could do that. So 2024, be happy, be joyous, try and be the husband who's going to prioritize that so that you're affecting and changing the climate and the atmosphere of your marriage and your family, right? And lastly, number 17, love your wife. And I think the best way to love her is finding one of the 16 things that I've mentioned now and trying to sit down on those things, drill down on those things, and really try and improve as a husband. So use one of these 16 things to do number 17. Love your wife. And loving your wife, for me, means sacrificing. Loving my wife means putting her needs, her passions, her ideals, her ambitions, her goals before mine, right? Don't hear me say that and think, wow, that sounds like such a wimpish thing to say. Like, well, I'm just going to sit back like a dead fish and let my wife's dreams, ambitions, thoughts, desires, and everything come before. No. That's not what I'm saying. It's an active, I am investigating all of these things about my wife that she has, her desires, her thoughts. I'm investigating that actively and saying, how do I champion those things? Right? I don't think about myself primarily. I don't become a very self-involved human being. I think that the biggest attribute and trait that a man is supposed to have is selflessness. And that means I am counting myself less. It's not that I don't count myself. I'm counting myself less. It's not that I don't love myself. It means I love my wife more than myself. It doesn't mean that I don't take care of myself. It means that I use my tools, my ambitions, my talents, my capabilities to care for my wife more, to care for her, right? And so that's what I'm saying when I speak about loving her and sacrificing myself so that I love her, right? And loving her means, again, listening, hearing, paying attention, noticing, and there could be other specific ways that your wife wants you to express your love towards her. Again, goes back to number one, communicate. Ask her what that is, right? We've all heard about the love languages and et cetera, et cetera. So ask her what her love language is, and see how it can be expressed. See how you can actually drill down and really love her with that, right? Hey, man, so those are the 17 things that I wanted to share. But before we end this video, it would be dope to just hear, what is the 18th thing that you would add to this list? There might be things that, again, as we celebrate becoming better husbands, that includes us as husbands. So there might be something that's like super dope and powerful that you've experienced, that you've chatted to your wife about, or you thinking about as a husband yourself, and you just want to add to this list. So what's the number 18th thing that you would want to see other husbands, and particularly yourself, achieving, realizing, bringing forth in 2024? So put that in the comment section, man. I would love to engage with that and see what are some of the dope things that come up. Again, we learn from each other's marriages. We learn from each other as husbands. Let's be each other's role models, right? I forgot what number that was, but let's be each other's role models. Put that in, and let me engage with that, and let's see what that is, right? Yo, man. This has been great. It's been amazing. I thought this was going to be a short episode, but I really wanted to bring all of these things so that at least there's a big pot for us to pick one thing, two things, five things. If you're a super husband, do all 17. And let's become better husbands this year. You are only a husband because of your wife, right? Yes, ultimately, God calls me to assume this role, but he calls me to assume this role in light or in relation to my wife. And so where is my husbandry or husbandhood going to be expressed? Can't be outside of my wife, right? And hence all of these things involve her. The first person who's going to reap the benefits of you becoming a better husband is your wife. The first person who's going to notice when you're not becoming a better husband is your wife. The first person who's going to be affected by your lack of improvement in becoming a better husband is your wife, right? So take this, sit down, take a notepad, or if you on your phone, open your notepad and your phone, say, hey, what are the things that I really want to dial down on as I listen to this episode? And what are the things that I want to present to my wife and say, hey, keep me accountable. Let's actually sit down and let's see how I can improve on these things this year. Again, I said at the beginning, some of us might need to improve on these things. There might be things I've mentioned here that you're already doing that you might improve on, or it might be things that I knew. Some of us, this might completely be new. One, either because you're a fresh husband. Secondly, you've just been a half husband for that long. You've been married for 5 years, 6 years, 10 years, 15 years, and you've just been a half husband. 2024, say I will not be a half husband and that's what defines me, but I'll be a half husband defined by becoming a better husband. And how am I going to become a better husband? Let me try and take these things and try and implement them in my life so that I could really, really see my marriage thrive, see me thrive as a husband, and then see my wife thrive, see my family thrive, because I've decided that my mindset is going to change, what I feel is going to change, how I'm going to approach my marriage is going to change, right? So let's do that, man. Let's become better husbands and let's move away from our half husband moments, right? Hope this was helpful. Hope this was great, man. I've enjoyed it. We're going to do more of these kind of episodes, right, where we just become real. So I want to hear your comments, want to read your comments. So put them in the description, or rather in the comment section, and share this with other husbands, right? If you're a wife, please share this with your husband and hear what he thinks. Sit down with him, have this conversation, and maybe this episode is a conversation starter. If you are a husband, yo, man, let's get comments. Let's get this thing going. And there's going to be, again, more episodes coming out. Thank you for riding with us. Thank you for being with us. Season 3 is still continuing. 2024 4. It's going to be exciting. There's a whole lot of other things we promised and we're going to do. Right? Men's conference is coming. There's going to be merch that's coming. We're going to do a tour. So it's going to be super dope. It'll be super, 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 super dope to meet you in person and to hang out and to actually have these conversations and to even see how some of this content has impacted your marriage and how your marriage is improving and how you see your husband improving because he's engaged with our content. And I'm not just saying that as a hope, because I've seen and heard stories of husbands who've actually gotten back to us who said, hey man, I think I've listened to you guys and I've tried to implement 1 or 2 things and I'm becoming better in this way. In fact, there was an episode again we did with LNP. Shout outs to LNP for that episode, where I saw a lady who commented and said she had to stop halfway through that episode to go celebrate her husband. Right? That made my heart leap, made my heart warm, right? And I was like, yo, that's it, man. We want to celebrate becoming better husbands. And if this content is doing that, we want to produce more, give more content that's going to do that, man. So, yeah, let's do that, right? 2.5 Black Newborn. It's been great. We'll see you next week. Tell everybody we want to celebrate becoming better husbands. If you have not subscribed, subscribe. Hit the notification bell. Again, this is part of the growth journey. If you don't hit the notification bell, the algorithm just sends this content to everyone else and you might miss out on that. But if you hit the notification bell, subscribe. And as we release, YouTube sends it directly to you first. And that's how we build, right? So we build with those who continuously watch. And so if you like the stuff and you knew, also hit the subscribe, hit the notification bell so that we continue growing and building together. And again, hopefully one day we'll see each other in person, right? Black Newborn 2.5, celebrate becoming better husbands. Peace!